Today, I'm having a chat with Alysn in New Zealand about her beautiful portrait that she did of Anaysui.
Perfect.
Congratulations, what an extraordinarily beautiful piece you've done in your usual style of many layers of found objects and unusual objects. I met you some years ago and I was very taken by the artwork that you do, particularly using metal fabric.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been great to meet you and visit as well, and visit your gallery. That's been wonderful.
Would you like to tell us a bit about yourself?
Ooh, what can we say? Yeah, I've been a textile artist for many, many years now. Previously a scientist, very briefly. And I think both things interact in my work, which I really enjoy, that I can sort of bring a science and some of that rigor and some of that investigative mentality into artwork, which is textile based. And I think textile based just because I've always stitched, you know, that classic, my grandma stitched, I learned to stitch sort of on her knee, and it was a natural progression into being a stitch artist rather than choosing any other medium. So now I am in New Zealand and explore metals, metal cloths, wires, a lot more paint recently, which is quite interesting, throwing paint and gesso and car sprays and various things like that around. So it's kind of been an interesting development.
It's wonderful to explore. Now, why did you choose Anatsui? Well, actually, I could see why you did choose him. An extraordinary artist he is. But I'd love to hear a bit more from you about that.
Okay, so when you invited me and said, let's, you know, portray, let's choose a fiber artist to portray, you think, oh, it's actually quite difficult because you immediately start to think about what techniques and how would I portray them with their techniques, or is that relevant, or do I use techniques of mine and how does that relate to somebody else's who's an artist in their own right? So having sort of considered various options, I'd seen Anaysui's work at the Tate Modern in London and at the Eden Project in Cornwall. Completely different works. One was a burnt wooden structure, and the one in Tate Modern is one of his sort of very dramatic recycled metal hangings, are they? They're kind of like flags almost.
Yeah.
And I think that the metal in there, the recycling, and the fact that he has this kind of he doesn't push hard to get a message across, but you really know what he's saying without it being rammed down your throat. And the other thing, just the scale of a lot of his work is so impressive. You know, how do you work at that scale? How do you think in those terms? So yeah, that was my choice.
They're very fluid, aren't they? Even though they might be made out of burnt timber or bottle tops, or they're very fluid. They look like material.
They do. They look just as if they're moving around in the wind, or they've just got this beautiful fluidity, as if they weigh nothing. They can't. They absolutely can't. But they are just beautiful pieces.
Now tell us about the process that you used. We're all intrigued as to how you've created your piece.
Okay, so obviously the metal had to come in somewhere, and he uses a lot of recycled metal, and I've been recently playing around with collecting and using the little coffee pods, the sort of ones that you put in the machines that people are using a lot, but until recently you've not been able to recycle them and reuse them. So there's been a kind of a mass of them just sitting in landfill probably. So I've been cutting those up and using them. And I thought, actually, I quite like coffee. I like using the metal. This is recycled metal. So that was a kind of, I knew that had got to come in somewhere. I also burn a lot of stuff generally. So whether it's metal or whether it's anything else, sort of a default process is let's do some burning somewhere. So
take the flame to it.
Yeah, has to happen. And you'll see in the images, at first I was using some sort of 3D forms, and I was thinking about a sculptural form, but that's somehow just didn't come together, so it got changed a lot on its process. I also use a lot of wire, and as we did, I think when I came to you, we did some blind contour drawing, and that I didn't want the portrait to be really realistic. It was more about a sense of a person and their work rather than being a realistic portrait of someone. I don't know him, so I don't have any access to how you would do a portrait that portrays an inner person when you don't know that person. So it had to be about his work somehow and about his physical look. So we used the blind contour drawing, and then I made that in wires. Those wires were then coated in latex and in car spray. So that became a part of the piece, with all the metal in the background and burnt fabrics. And then I used a stiffener as well to stiffen the background fabric, and burnt the edges as well. Got a bit more burning.
Take that torch. And it works beautifully. I think the abstraction of his face that's in stark contrast to the metal behind is beautiful. It stands out very well.
Good, because it was quite a challenge as a piece. You know, it's different to other works, and to have a focus of a portrait is something that was, you know, a challenge for me, which is good. You know, always great to push yourself somewhere different. So thank you for the opportunity and the challenge.
For the challenge. Do you like doing portraits?
It's only the second one I've ever done. And the other one was of me. I'll probably send you a picture of that one. And that was, again, for a portrait exhibition, but it had to be a self-portrait. That was kind of different because it was about colour rather than me.
So you're going to come to Australia, hopefully, if we're all open next year. What are you going to be teaching with us?
I think we're going to be using a lot of the metal cloths and some design techniques and lots of free machine stitching to look at the spaces between design marks, and really concentrating on how we can develop that into pieces that, you know, are just personal, interesting works.
Lovely way to get our eye in by doing that.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I find it really useful. It's a technique I use quite a lot when I'm developing new works, is to look at shapes and the intervening spaces in the shapes and developing those. Yeah, so look forward to it.
Well, I look forward to you coming back to Aussie, and thank you so much for being part of this show. It's such a strong and wonderful show, and I'm really sorry you can't be here to share it with us, but it's very good to have your piece hanging amongst the others.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, and good luck with it all. Thank you.